In this video, we'll review the process of creating a BMP construction checklist. Before we get started, I'll mention this video can be stopped at any time by tapping the middle of the screen. Next, tap the X icon on the top left to close the video. From here, tapping the back button twice will return you to the main app menu. So let's get onto the process of creating a BMP construction checklist. Ideally, you want to work on your BMP construction checklist as construction occurs on the SWM facility. Go ahead and start by tapping the Create BMP Construction Checklist button. Note the red message indicating that the mobile device does not contain any suspended or in-process checklists. Since we don't have any checklists started, we'll click the New Checklist button down at the bottom. We must select a project for the construction checklist to be created, so I'll tap the Select button at the top of the list for Elkton Road. Now we see a list of BMPs that are SWM facilities that are being built on this site. We must select a BMP for the construction checklist, so I'll scroll down and select the infiltration trench record for IFT 974.
After the BMP is selected, SwiftTrack will ask you for a couple other elements of data. One will be the BMP location, which is pre-populated with Swift Designer information. You can tap and override this field value as necessary. You can also tap and enter a DOT observer. Joe Smith. As you see, you can use the dictation capabilities of your device to enter information in SwiftTrack. Report Checklist General Comments can be edited by tapping the Add Edit General Comments button. From here, tap in the box to bring up the keyboard, then type or dictate general notes as needed. Day 1 of construction. Once you've finished entering your comment, tap the Done button to proceed. At any time, you can suspend the checklist to be resumed at a later date. This is useful for when the construction of a particular SWM facility spans many days. For instance, on day 1, you can start filling out the checklist for a particular BMP, working through the checklist items that you are currently able to see and visually inspect. Once all items have been inspected, the checklist can be suspended, then resumed the following day as you continue to work through the checklist items that become available for inspection. For now, let's proceed further into the checklist functionality by tapping the Go button. This app panel allows you to record the dates and times that you're on site completing this checklist. It's important to note that you'll have another chance to add or edit on-site times when you finalize the checklist. This first opportunity to enter on-site times is optional, since you may not know in advance the time you're leaving the site. For now, we'll bypass entering any on-site times by simply tapping the Go button. Now we're ready to begin working through the checklist content for the selected BMP. Note that checklist content is customized for each type of BMP. In this case, infiltration trench type checklists have 15 line items. The heading at the top tells us we are currently reviewing line item number 1 of 15.
Just below the line item heading, we see line item number 1's content is regarding pre-construction notification given. We now have the opportunity to designate whether this particular line item meets standards, is not acceptable, or is not applicable by using the buttons just beneath the line item description. The Add Edit Item Notes button can be used to attach a note to a particular line item. These notes can be viewed later after the checklist is complete. In addition to notes, you can also attach photos to a particular line item by using either the Import Photo or Take Photo buttons. Any photos captured thus far for a particular line item can be reviewed by tapping the View Photos button. Next are the checklist navigation buttons, Previous Line and Next Line. These buttons can be used to navigate back and forth through the checklist. You can use the Toggle List View button to see all of the line items on the checklist. This gives you an at-a-glance view of all the checklist items and how they've been answered. So far, all line items are not yet answered. I'll tap the Toggle List View button once again to return to line item number 1. Now I'm going to indicate that the pre-construction notification given met standards by simply tapping the Meet Standards button. The BuildTrack app will flag the item as meeting standards and we'll move on to the next line. And now we see we've moved on to line item number 2, where I'll tap the Meet Standards button again. Next I'll tap the Not Acceptable button, which brings us to line item number 4. We'll go ahead and continue on through the next couple items. Now we've come to a line item where the app is prompting for a pipe diameter, and as you can see, the available buttons have changed. We no longer see the 3 buttons Meet Standards, Not Acceptable, and Not Applicable, Instead, we have a button that says Edit Item Answer. So in order to supply the pipe diameter, I'm going to tap the Edit Item Answer button. Then I'll tap in this area to record my answer. 22 inches. Next, I'll tap the Done button to submit my answer for the current line item. And now you can see the answer for pipe diameter is 22 inches. From here, we can either edit the item answer I just supplied, or proceed to the next line item. We'll move on, and now the next line item is prompting for pipe material. Once again, I'll tap the Edit Item Answer button. And I'll tap in the box to record my answer. Concrete. And again, I'll tap Done to submit my answer. Once again, we see the answer has been applied to the line item. Next, I'll add an item note to this line item by tapping Add Edit Item Notes. And I'll indicate PVC was not available. After tapping Done, we see that the answer to this item is concrete, but I was also able to add a note. At this point, I could also import or capture photos for this line item, as I mentioned before. If I tap the Finish button at this point down on the lower right, the app will indicate to me the line items of the checklist that have not been answered. As you can see, line items 10 through 15 have not yet been answered. So I'll tap OK and use the Toggle List View button so I can scroll through the checklist items. This allows us to review all the different answers that have been given so far. And as you can see, line items 10 through 15 remain unanswered. Perhaps construction has not gotten to the point where these items can be reviewed. Since I cannot complete the checklist at this time, I'm going to tap the Suspend button here at the bottom. And now we see a message that our data has been saved, and we're back at the main app menu. So let's say that I log out, and I log back in the following day. I can resume the checklist that I started yesterday by tapping Create BMP Construction Checklist. This time we see this list contains the checklist that was started yesterday, so I'll resume the in-progress checklist by tapping the Resume button. Once again, we have the opportunity to edit the general information, but I'll skip past this by tapping Go. I don't need to enter these dates and times that I was on site yet, but I'll take this opportunity to enter the times I was on site yesterday. So I'll tap the Add On-Site Date Times button. Then I'll tap the Date On-Site field to bring up the date picker and select yesterday's date, followed by tapping Done. The process is similar for the time arrived on site. I'll tap the field, and then I'll select 8 a.m. and then tap Done. Followed by the time departed on site, I'll tap the field and specify 3:20 p.m. and then tap Done. Finally, I can tap the Done button to submit the on-site date time values I entered. So I just indicated that yesterday I was on site from 8 a.m. to 3:20 p.m. and I'll proceed into the checklist by tapping Go. Now we're back into the checklist. We see we're still working through the same 15 line items we started yesterday. We're currently reviewing line item number 1, which has already been answered, so I'll continue to tap the next line button until I reach the first unanswered line item. I've arrived at the first unanswered line item, item 10, but once again I find I'm unable to proceed, so I'll suspend the checklist yet again by tapping the Suspend button.
Now let's say that it's day 3 of construction of this BMP, and a different CCR needs to resume and complete this checklist. BuildTrack now allows users to download and resume in-progress checklists, including checklists created by other users. Now that I've logged in as the new CCR, I need to download and resume the checklist that was started for the Elkton Road BMP IFT 974. I'll start by tapping the Create BMP Construction Checklist button. Note that at this point there aren't any in-progress checklists loaded on my device, so I'll tap the Restore Checklist button. Now we are looking at a list of in-progress checklists that are currently available for download. We see the checklist we need for IFT 974 is currently on version 2, which was last updated yesterday at 4:08 p.m. Note that a new version of this checklist was uploaded each time the previous CCR suspended the checklist. In other words, each time a checklist is suspended, a new version is made available here for download. I will now download the in-progress checklist data to my device by tapping the Select button. This download will include the checklist itself, along with any answers or photos that have been submitted thus far. Now that the checklist data has been downloaded, I can resume the checklist just as if it had been started on my device. I'll now resume the checklist by tapping Create BMP Construction Checklist. And then I'll select the Resume option. Next, I'll add to the previous CCR's comments by tapping Add Edit General Comments. New CCR on-site resuming checklist on day 3 of construction. I don't need to edit any other data here, so I'll proceed by tapping Go. No need to enter on-site times yet. I'll add this information once I finalize the checklist. So for now, I'll tap Go. Now that we're into the checklist, I'll toggle the list view by tapping Toggle List View, and I'll scroll down to find out where the last CCR left off. Here we can see all the previous CCR's work. So we see line items 10 through 15 remain unanswered, so we'll go ahead and jump right to line item number 10 by tapping the green Edit button. Now I'll indicate the remaining line items meet standards so we can finalize this checklist. I'm at the last line item, so I'll close this message, then tap the Finish button on the bottom right. I have an opportunity to edit my general comments, which I already did, so I'll tap Done. I see I need to add my on-site time entry, so I'll do so now. I'm ready to proceed, so I'll tap the Go button. Now's my opportunity to sign the checklist, so I'll do so. And we also have the opportunity to have the DOT observer sign. And then I'll tap Finalize Report. And now I can tap the Yes button to upload the completed checklist to the server. And you can see the data is now uploading. This will upload all the data for the checklist answers along with any photos that were taken. And that's the process for creating a BMP construction checklist. Thank you very much for watching.